Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will learn from personal stories and explore thought-provoking topics, all with one goal in mind: living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose podcast, where it's our mission to become one of the most impactful. Let me take that back. Not one of the most. I want to become the most impactful podcast in the world, empowering people to smile, laugh, love, and live life with purpose. No more just going through the motions. And this week, I'm excited. As I was preparing for this guest, I got inspired just reading her stuff and looking into her background, and she learned to cuss when she was 7 years old in French. Like, how impressive is that? She is an abstract expressionist, artist, wild woman by her own quote, art business owner, educated, and mama. She wants you to think of her as her straight-talking friend, that's fellow paint slinger, mindset slayer, that's out changing the world by empowering people to let their creative side go through art. And she's doing amazing work. You can see her work on Instagram, all over some major publications. And I'm blessed that she had some time to sit down with us here on the On Purpose podcast and share her story with us. So sit back, get prepared to laugh, maybe throw out a cuss word or two, and enjoy this week's interview with Jodie King. Jodie, my friend, welcome to the On Purpose podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's my honor to be here.
I'm excited. I say this almost every show, I think, but I really get excited when I start researching the candidates that want to come on the show and, like, what do I want to talk about? And there is no shortage of questions I have for you, my friend.
Let's go. Like I said, I'm not scared. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You email back, I ain't scared. I'm like, oh, this is my kind of person. We're not going to face fear today, and we're not going to let it slow us down. That's for sure.
Exactly.
All right, though, before I get into this stuff of Jodie and your story of reinventing yourself and the success you've had and the inspiration you are to the world, and I don't say that lightly. Like, I literally was looking, I'm like, man, she's making a difference around the world. We want to get into that, but I got to warm you up a little bit. I got to let the people know what is going on behind the scenes. Are you ready for this, Jodie?
I'm so ready. I'm so ready.
All right, here's one of my favorites. You're on a deserted island the rest of your life. You get one food. What do you want to be eating?
So I'm Cajun. So the first thing that came to my mind was gumbo, because we can put anything we want in gumbo. So that keeps like gumbo, but with variety, right? So I could make seafood gumbo. I could catch a chicken with my bare hands on the island. I can make chicken gumbo.
I love it. And I got to tell you, every time I hear the word gumbo, I think of Matthew McConaughey's accent saying it to me.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew and I both live in Austin, so maybe he and I can have a gumbo cook-off sometime.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm either going to get him on the show or I'm going to get a restraining order, because I message them constantly.
That's hilarious.
Oh, no, that's one of my... He's an Airstream guy. I'm an Airstream guy. We all like gumbo. It sounds like the three of us should have a gumbo feast.
All right. All right.
All right, Jodie, you get one superpower. What is your power and what would you want to do with it?
I think the superpower like I could get, I think it's the superpower that we all have. It would just be an increased level, and that is just to have, just incredible intuition. So, but we all have that, right? It's just the degree to which we desire to cultivate it. Because honestly, I had like unmatched intuition. I'm going to be making all kinds of great decisions for myself, regardless of the situation. So it's not very sexy. I mean, I would like to maybe be invisible. I've often said I'd love to be a fly on the wall for this conversation or that conversation. That's probably a sexier superpower, but I think just heightened intuition, like bad. Can I cuss on here?
Oh yeah. Yeah, let it
Like
go. Let
really
her rip.
fucking, like really fucking amazing intuition. It would be incredible.
Well, here's what I would love, Jodie, if you had really fucking amazing intuition, is I know you do good for other people with it. So I'd give it to
Yeah.
you if I could.
Thanks. Thank you. What, wait, what would yours be?
Oh, man, mine is my superpower. I literally have shared this before, but I tell people I'm not really good at many things in life. But one of the things I'm off the charts good at is believing in myself. Like I just believe I can do whatever I feel like I can do. And if I could have a superpower, I would give other people the ability to believe in themselves,
That's amazing.
which
Yeah.
is kind
I
of like
think,
yours.
yeah, for sure. It's kind of the work that I do. It looks like I help people with art, but really what I help them do is become, their boldest, baddest,
Mm,
highest version of themselves through the use of art and creativity.
I love it. I ran a mixed martial arts gym for many years, and people on the outside thought I taught people to fight. But what we really taught people to do was to fight against themselves and to believe in themselves and to push through. Fighting, boxing, wrestling was just the media that we had to
Right.
connect.
Then you and we are doing the same work, absolutely the same
Mm.
thing. It's the most gratifying uh, purpose in the world to be able and it's a privilege, such a privilege.
I agree. It's an honor when people give you that space in their lives.
Mhm.
Favorite book, my friend. If you got to go to a book, you're like, yeah, man, I just need to pick myself up. What am I going to?
Oh, um, oh shit! Women Who Run with the Wolves. Am I
Oh,
saying that?
yeah, my wife's reading it right now. As a matter of fact, it's right across from me right now.
Did I get the title right? It's right
Women,
next to my bed.
yeah, women who run with the
And with the
wolves.
wolves, yes, Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's like my bedside companion. I've read it so many times. It's highlighted. And I just pick it up when I need a reminder. Just kind of everything. I was going to say a reminder of who the fuck I
I love it.
am.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I love it. A reminder of the badassery that we have, right?
yeah, exactly.
I gotta tell you, Jay, that's one of my favorite things in researching you is how many times I saw references to your grandma, your daughters, just other women. Because I think one of the things that hurts my heart is when I see women tearing down women, not uplifting women. And, and
I
I
agree.
and I love that that's one of your missions is to empower women to say like this shit's possible for all of us.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes me so sad and a little crazy if when I see, women not, you know, either lifting or supporting or whatever. I just think, haven't we done that long enough?
Mm,
It's time we change that. And
I love
so
it.
yeah, it's nice to be part of changing that narrative.
I'm just I gotta commend you for choosing to change it, right? Because a lot of times that's more work than just going status quo or staying in the lane. But choosing to be a disruptor, I applaud that.
Well, thanks. And it's not what I find is it's not as much as of women tearing down other women or not supporting other women. It's us doing it to ourselves
Mm,
and changing that story for ourselves. And I see it, because of the work that I do in supporting artists. We have a narrative for artists of really a diminishment. Better get a real job. You really can't make a living that way. Starving artists, all of that, and then you add the female component on top of it, especially when it comes to making money and what we believe is possible for ourselves as artists and then as women. It's
ooh,
that's the thing to really get to the heart of.
mm, I love it. All right. You get to have dinner with one person. They could have passed or still be with us. Who are you having dinner with and what do you want to learn?
uh I am such a super fan of Sarah Blakely. So what I love about Sarah Blakely is, first of all, she's so real. She's so authentic. She often talks about that, how she's a combination of Lucille Ball and just this highly successful entrepreneur. And I relate to that because I'm such a bonehead, and I'm I'm okay with that. But she created this highly successful business her way,
Yeah.
without listening to naysayers, without compromising quality. Super incredibly successful, but she gives back to her team, and she is devoted to her family and
Yeah.
to her marriage. And I don't know, I'm just a super fan. So I would sit down with Sarah. We do a shot of tequila because I know she does that, especially when she flies. We'll have a shot of tequila and let's have a great night. That's what I would do.
I actually listened to her speak at a convention a couple years ago. Yeah, she's a great speaker too. Not only is she like
Yeah,
got a good story, she's great at delivering the story.
yeah. I'm a big fan.
I love it. Are you feeling warmed up, Jody?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we're warmed up, ready to go. All right, I want to start your conversation with a quote that I saw you had given in one of your other interviews by Hannah Gatsby that said, "There's nothing stronger than a broken woman who's put herself back together." I want to kind of go down that road of you putting yourself back together because looking at it, was about you were about 35 when you finally started going into your arts and really just diving in. Talk
Right.
to me about the process of not necessarily being broken, but recognizing like, wait, there's more for me here. There's more I can give in the world. And how did we get there?
Yeah. So the quote from Hannah Gatsby was so powerful to me. I didn't read it or see it rather until I was about 15 years into my art journey. So I saw it around 50 years old, and that was I've had a lot of trauma in my life, as so many people have. Um, but I went through a really difficult, painful divorce, as they all are, at 50, realizing that I I really had never spent any time alone. I didn't know
Mm,
who I was. And so I had to I was a broken woman. I felt completely shattered, and I didn't know how I was going to put myself back together when I never knew who I was in the first place.
mm,
So one of the things that really helped me with this was the fact that I was an artist. And that's how I put myself back together again in doing that. And there was actually a book written called Burnout by I'm going to say Nagoski sisters. I don't know
mm-hmm.
if you're familiar with
Yeah.
this book. They talked about one of the sisters is a psychologist, the other one is in the arts and music, and went burnout. And what they found when they were, and she ended up in the hospital, like bad, not just like, oh, I need to take a nap, like really, really serious burnout, serious mental health. Research they found. Do I need to stop? No. Okay. One of the things to the research that they found was that our bodies go through a stress cycle. And so we don't get sick or burn out or end up in the hospital or struggle with mental health issues because of the thing that happens. That's just
Yeah.
stage one of the stress cycle. But what happens is the second stage is it gets into our bodies. And
Mm,
the third stage of the stress cycle is we move it through. And so the illness that happens to us is because it gets stuck in our bodies. So the key is moving it through,
sure.
right? So they discovered that there were 7 or 8 ways to do this. I can't remember if it was 7 or 8, but one of them was creativity, was a creative practice. And so it was only in hindsight, thank goodness I was an artist prior to this happening to me and for me. Now I can see it as it was for me.
Yep.
Was I had art to help me move this through my body. I'm talking like cutting up canvases, like really
Yep.
putting a lot of emotion into it. And that is what I call honest art. And I teach honest art. Like if we are here and feel called to create something, whether it's woodworking or it's a song or it's a play or it's a painting, we're really not called here to create what somebody else is doing, which is very enticing, especially when you're feeling insecure about your own skill set. But we're called to create what we, move something through us, right? Let it come in, let it go out. And so I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's how I found my purpose. I
Yeah.
thought my purpose was in creating art, but really what my purpose has been is helping others to create their honest art, whether they want to sell it or they want to just have it for themselves. And that is how we put ourselves back together again.
I love it. Let's go back for a second that you talked about having not sat with yourself. Like you go through this divorce and you don't know who you are because you've been a
Right.
mom and a wife and all these other things. What was that process of discovering who you were like? What did you do? How did you work through that before the art?
Before the art, well, I started painting when I was 35. And I found before I started painting that there were certain things that really helped me. Number one, I journaled.
Mm.
I've been somebody that has journaled my whole life. And I started dancing when I was 3 years old, just like from 3 to 11 years old, every single, like 5 days a week. So I knew moving my body, I was just felt really, really comfortable to me. So putting, the ways that I nourished myself or gave myself self-care was through movement. And then I, did triathlons for a little while. And, but it was always writing. Writing was a big one for me. And I've since written a memoir. So anybody out there who wants to
Yeah.
publish it,
Oh,
hit me
okay.
up.
Yeah,
Hit
yeah.
me up.
Yeah. So you, I guess what I'm looking there, or what I hear is one of the things I heard that I really like and I want to expand upon is you gave yourself space to explore
Yes.
you,
Yes.
right? You didn't
So the
rush off and and let me interrupt real quick. You didn't rush off and fill the void externally. You went internally, which I think is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves is to explore the inside before we look for all the external factors.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I left home when I was 18 and was on my own. I went to college. 3 months after I went to college, I met um, my I call him starter husband Todd, but we're different. But I met starter husband 3 months after I got to college. So I went from my family home to being in this relationship, right? I didn't use my college years to explore myself. I used them to fall in love with somebody else.
Yeah.
My apologies.
No, you're good.
Uh, and we were married until I was 35. And then a year later, I got right back into another relationship and we were together for 13 years. And now I'm at 50. I don't know the math, but I can promise you that works. And now I'm at 50, never having really been alone. I had children within there as well. I'd never really been alone. And now I find myself alone and completely feeling emotionally decimated. All I know is what didn't work.
Mm.
And what didn't work was looking outside of myself for somebody to fill that up. So
Were you surprised by anything you found that was already in you that you didn't need anybody else to bring out of you?
I was surprised that um, I was surprised at how much I believed in myself when nobody else did.
Yeah.
And this started actually, the divorce process took a year, and in mediation, the last day, uh, it didn't go well for me financially, and now I'm 50 years old, starting over.
Yeah.
And my attorney knew I was an artist, and we had talked about it. She knew one of the galleries where my art was. Like it was, we spent a lot of time together. She knew I was an artist. Um, and on that day when things didn't go well for me, she's putting her papers in her briefcase. Uh, I'm, crying in the corner, literally. Uh, and she looks at me and she says, and I said, I better start painting. And she said, I don't think you understand, Jodie. You need to get a job.
Ooh.
And in the moment where I'm in tears, feeling completely helpless, I don't know what I'm going to do. This woman who had my best interests at heart, by the way, she
Yep.
wasn't trying to be cruel.
No.
When she says, you better get a job, what up in me was, you don't know who the fuck I am.
Love it.
And the truth was, I didn't know who the fuck I was.
Yeah.
But I knew enough to believe in myself that I could do this.
Yeah.
And then so that's what surprised me, is that when I knew I was going to do this, like it was go time. I'd sold art for years, but I didn't have to support myself. But in that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm so doing this.
Mm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Did you give her any French cuss words? Because I understand you're good at French cuss words.
I am. No, I didn't want to make her mad. She scared me.
I love it. Yeah, so you found out how, and that's one of the things I love about this human journey is often in our lowest moments and our hardest struggles, we actually find our strength that if we weren't faced with it, may have just lied dormant. We may not have known how strong we were.
Absolutely. It has this, as I said, this has been the greatest gift of my life, has been these last 5 years of self-discovery, uh, feeling so okay, being alone, being knowing I can provide for myself, knowing that I like myself, knowing that I'm able to give and receive love. It's just the simplest stuff, but it makes all the difference.
Yes. When did you trust yourself again? Was there a period where you were doubting your decision making that you're like, you go back and okay, I remember I was right here, and when I made this decision, I knew that I could trust myself again.
Um, I don't think I got there till about a year ago.
Okay.
I think it took me, I mean, and I'm running a business, successful business with a team with it, but really, at 3 o'clock in the morning when I sit up in my bed with, my heart racing, that's when it really is. But can you trust yourself? And so I still lived and operated out of a lot of fear. And it was about a year ago that I was like, you got this.
What
You,
was what was the moment? Do you remember like what you were thinking?
um, I don't think that there was a particular moment. I just remember looking around and thinking all of the things that you say, Jodie, that you want, you have.
Mhm.
You've already done it. You've got the love of your children. You've got the love of your family. You've got incredible friends. You've got a beautiful home that I did on my own. Um, I, all of the things, I feel safe. I feel loved. I like all of the things that we think once we get the thing, we'll have what we want. I looked around. I don't know. I just like woke up one day and I was like, you've already done it.
Mm.
You've done it. You have it. Everything else is gravy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the fascinating things about looking back, right? And I know it's popular to tell people like get rid of the rear view mirror. We only look forward, but I think sometimes it's critical to stop, turn around and go, wait a second, look where I've been and where I am, because you're right. Like that is where your strength comes from. Like, how do I know I can do this thing tomorrow? Well, because I've done harder shit in the past, right? That's the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. I heard this saying, which I love. It says courage, or sorry, confidence comes from courage. So I am confident now because I had the courage to do the work and to do every single thing that scared me. And now I'm confident that I can, like, to your point, trust myself.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. When do you What is your decision? Because you've had a lot of success, restaurant, wine bar, organic clothing company, plus the art and the business you're developing now. Talk to me in our community about when do you trust your intuition to stay a course if it's getting difficult, if you're starting to have doubts, and when do you know to say, okay, I got to pivot here? Like, what is that decision making look like for you?
Well, oftentimes, like let's say 2020, when the pandemic hit, oftentimes the decision to say the course is more difficult than to change. And what I mean by that is I'm not somebody that is going to say, oh, I've been doing this for 2 years and gosh, this isn't really working. I'm more of somebody who's like, let's try this for 6 months. And if it isn't working, we got to pivot. And so sometimes we don't have 6 months, but like for instance, in March of 2020, I was going to teach a workshop in Sedona, Arizona, like the first week of
Mm-hmm.
April 2020. And obviously it got canceled. And that was a loss of significant revenue, like a ton of revenue. I don't want to say it on here, but people would probably
Yeah.
be surprised. A lot of revenue. And remember, I have myself and I have a team. And at the time I had a daughter in college. Like it was significant. And so I went to I sat down and I do a lot of meditating, and I think I talked to you about intuition, and I just thought, what am I going to do? So I sat down in meditation. I just said, I don't know whether you can call it the universe, God, whatever you want to say. And I
Yep.
just said, what would you have me do? I often say
Mm.
that prayer every morning. What would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say? And to whom? And I said, what would you have me do? And I just felt, stay visible. So I sat down in meditation the next day and I said, no, but really, what would you have me do?
Right.
And I got the same thing, stay visible. And so that's what I did is I started going live Monday through Friday on Instagram. And I just thought, you know what? In the absence of being able to serve in a workshop, I'm going to serve. I'm just going to serve and serve and serve and serve. So that's what I did. Monday through, I called or contacted my digital marketing person. I said, listen, I'm going to go live every single day, Friday, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, well, you better have 6 weeks of content because this thing could last for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And we all know it lasts a little bit longer than that. Uh, but but my point is that I didn't just sit there and say, gosh, I hope this turns out okay. Or I didn't just sit there and say, I'm just going to continue doing the same thing over and over again. Um, because that's what happened to a lot of businesses during
Yeah.
COVID. They tried to continue to do the same thing without pivoting to change with the times. So I pivoted and learned that um, the questions that people were asking me online were mostly business related questions. And up until that point, I had only been teaching creativity, painting in my workshops. But 90% of the questions were about business. How do you ship a painting? How do I market? How do I work with art consultants? How do I work with designers? All of, and I had all that because I'd been in the business for so long. So that's where I pivoted. I pivoted there. But that's been in any business. If you sit there and first of all, just hope is not a strategy.
No.
And you gotta keep looking at your audience and asking, not is it what you, well, it is what you want, but also what is it people need? How can we serve them?
Mm.
That's the biggest thing.
And what about if you apply that to life outside of business? What if somebody's listening and they're not a business owner, right? They're in our
Yeah.
community, but so you can take that same logic, right? If I apply, like, how do I serve the people around me? That's a pretty fulfilling life. That's going to be pretty fulfilling days.
It is an incredibly fulfilling life. And in the same vein, if we are doing the same things in our relationships
Mm.
or with our friends or whatever, and it's not going well, And we continue to do the same thing and expecting a different result instead of pivoting and saying, what can I do differently here,
Mhm.
instead of what everyone else around us
Mm.
should do differently to make us happy. But yeah, what can I do differently here? That's a game changer.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because a lot of your stuff is art based that I was researching. And you talk about integrity with the art you create. But what I love before that is it says integrity with myself and the
Mhm.
art I create. And I think that's a place that your superpower comes from, right? That's that place that your trust comes from, is when you know you're honest with yourself and you don't wake up each day. And it's a silly example, but I use this all the time in my classes. Is you don't wake up to start the day with a lie. What I mean by that is, if you say you're getting up at 6 o'clock and you hit the snooze and you get up at 6:05, well, it's still early, but you lied to yourself because you're
Mhm.
supposed to do it at 6. And I think, just like you said, we want to look so much at who's supposed to do something else for me, whether it's politics, the media, superstar, whatever. All these people should be doing this. And that's why my life isn't what I want. Instead of going, no, wait a second, Jared. 6:05 is not 6. And
Yeah,
and I love that you're talking about the integrity in your art, but you can't have integrity in art unless you have integrity within you.
absolutely. You can't create honest art unless you're honest with yourself about where you are, what you're feeling. It's and that's where it becomes powerful.
Mm.
The art, your life, the whole thing.
It's powerful when the synergy aligns, right? When you're being honest with yourself, you're being honest with your work, you're honest in your relationships. And and here's the thing I love, Jodie, is it's easy.
It's so easy. It's so much easier. So much easier than trying to please. I mean, this was me. It's not that I ever wanted to be disingenuous. It's just that I considered the needs of other people, or how, what their perception would be, before I considered what I needed.
Mm.
And so I started in, like, well, what do I need? What do I want? Who do I want to be? What do I want to become? Where do I want to go? When I started asking myself those things, that, for me, again, first time alone, right? Imagine, what do I
Yeah.
want to eat? You
Yeah.
know?
Not only are you asking that, but you're giving yourself permission to want more. And I think
Yes.
people get to a certain age, and they get to a certain age and life is what it is. And you ask them, like, what's your dream? Well, I don't have, I just go to work. I look forward to retirement. Well, we got 15 years before that. You have no dreams. Like, let's give ourselves permission to dream. And that's what I wanted to go back to. I read some in a couple of interviews you did where people talked really hard to you about reinventing yourself, reinventing, whether it's business or creatively, personally. I want to ask you, do you like that term, reinventing yourself? What do you think of in general, that term, or thoughts that go with that?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a particular aversion to reinventing yourself. But I do think that the term that I think is more appropriate for me, anyway, is excavating.
Mm.
Is, excavating to find the truest version of ourselves. So I don't know that we're reinventing, but maybe we are. I
Yeah.
mean, I listen. I'm a live and let live. I don't. You can do whatever you want in your life, and I'm like, okay, good for you. If you want to, change anything about yourself, just do it. Stop complaining and do
Right.
it. But I like the idea of excavating. I think that's just like, it's a way of, like, okay, I was at I teach workshops in Italy every June, and there's this archaeological dig that we go to, and they've found one of the most significant archaeological sites in all of Europe. So it's really remarkable. But we were there, and they're excavating, right, and they're not with the big axe, like, just slamming into the dirt, right? They've got these small little instruments, and then they've got these brushes, and they're gingerly caring for the soil and they're wiping things away. And when they find something, they pick it up, they study it, they hold it with care,
Mm,
they admire it. And I love that idea of what we to do that for ourselves, to, quit. We don't have to find the truest version of ourselves, treat ourselves with such care by excavating, just
mm,
really looking at something, dig in, don't be so hard, be compassionate. That's what I've had to do. I've had to be very compassionate with myself about the decisions, the poor decisions that I made, and then through that excavation, understanding why I made those
mm.
decisions, not to excuse them, but to give myself compassion.
And
That
grace.
and grace. I mean, that to me is the beautiful part about excavation.
I see. It's funny because I had that question up there because I have a certain thought too, and I was like, I'm curious what you think of that term because, and I love it. So it's great you had an answer first off.
but what do you think about reinventing?
Well, first off, I'm glad you had an answer because I would have hated if you'd been like, I've never even thought of this, dude. I don't particularly like it because when I hear reinventing, it almost leans like I'm turning my back on who I was to become something new. And I don't think that I think because people ask me all the time, like you've done this, and now you're off on this, and you're gonna do that. I just really say I give myself permission to dream. Right. I'm
I
not
love that.
afraid of who I was. Like just like you said, I've done stupid things, things I'm not proud of, things I would never do again, but I accept them. It's my mistakes, it's my grace. I learn from them. But I don't ever want to be at an age where where I'm afraid to have a dream or to
I
try,
agree.
and I just think so many people, one, need to give themselves grace on past mistakes because we're supposed to err. That's how we learn. And two, we should always have a dream out there of what is it I want to, who do I want to be, and what do I want to be doing with this life that's bigger than us.
Yeah. I think that's one of the joys that I about the community of artists that are around me. Not all of them, but a large percentage of them are around mid 40s to 70s.
Yeah.
So it's at a time in our lives where at least, well, I work with men as well as women. So I don't want to just clarify it just for women, but at a time in our lives where we've done all of the shoulds, we've married and raised kids and did the career and all of those things. And now we're at a phase of our life where we said, okay, now what? What do I want? And so many of them decide they are going to start painting for the first time
Yeah.
or doing some sort of creative endeavor, pottery, or whatever it might be for the first time. And it's like they come alive again because they're feeding something that was innately there from the beginning. You probably know this, but I'm just gonna say it anyway.
I love
So
it.
there was a study done where they went into I wish I knew who they were. They went into kindergarten classrooms and they said, everyone here who's an artist, raise your hand. And 100% of the kids raised their hands. And then they went into third grade and they said, okay, everyone here who's an artist, raise their hand. Half the kids raise their hand. And then middle school, they went and one kid raised their hand.
Mm,
And so it's not that we become less creative, right? It's that we forget that we are innately creative.
mm.
And so rediscovering that, it's like being a kid again, right? It's rediscovering this joy and, like you said, dreams and getting excited again about life. That's what I see happening to the demographic that I primarily work with. Not only, but I
I
had this
love.
one woman, Jared. Sorry, I
No, you
can
love
talk.
it.
I had this one woman who was 70, and she started painting about 10 years before. And she was taking one of my courses. And she said, I was like, you are so impressive. I'm just so in awe of you. And she goes, oh, well, I've decided I'm going to be a poet when I'm 80.
Love it.
How great.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's funny we were talking about this. There's a poem from Matthew Arnold. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's called The Buried Life. And I'll just read you the very last stanza. It says, but often in the world's most crowded streets, but often in the din of strife there rises an unspeakable desire after the knowledge of our buried life, a thirst to spend our fire and restless force in tracking out our true original course, a longing to inquire into the mystery of this heart which beats, so wild, so deep in us to know whence our lives come and where they go. That was written in 1857.
Stop.
At the end of his life, he's standing there saying, this isn't my life. Where did it come? Where did it go? So here, you'll like this story. So I was about to turn 50 and I read that poem for the first time. And I was like, gosh, okay, if I die tomorrow, what would I look back on and ask myself, why did I not try? And it was this: music. Because, and I was like, okay, I love music. I write books to music. I listen to music all the time. I love it. But I've never played music. And I was like, why have I not played music? And I started going back and I was like, well, in sixth grade, when I was a complete asshole of a student, I got kicked out of music class all the time. And either the teacher told me or I just told myself I was no good at music. So for my 50th birthday, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn to play an instrument because I don't want to die wondering, like, I might suck, but I might be great or I might just have fun. And now it's been a year almost that I've had this and I love playing music on it. And I got like 6 songs. I'm like 2 more songs away from a legit concert venue.
See, now we're on the same territory. Now you're like, now we're like all the artists. Here's the thing. I am so passionate about artists and creatives. And by that, I mean musicians and like my daughter, one daughter is a writer and the other daughter is a comedian. So I've always encouraged, my daughters to be creative. The thing is that artists, we are the feelers of the world. We feel, not that others aren't, but we tend to be quite sensitive, but we don't know what to do with it. Right. Yep. So we turn ourselves inside out to put, like you wrote, right? So writers, news, all of it. And what happens is that thing that we created, if we're honest, right? It validates the human experience for someone else.
Yes.
That is everything. That creates connection. We're in the epidemic of loneliness. And what we do as artists, that it heals not only us when we create it, but it heals other people.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to say, is the creatives are the healers.
Yes.
Right. You think about you're having a rough day, you turn on your favorite song that may have been made 30 years ago. It takes you back. You feel better. You pick up that book. You feel inspired. I look at your painting. I see possibility, right? The creatives are the healers. And I think, like you said, when we give ourselves permission to step into our creative, we heal.
Yes.
Right? Because we have an outlet. But we don't know who it's going to reach on the other side. And when I started this podcast and my first few episodes had like 10 listeners, they were great. You know why? Because if one of them felt different from having listened, I would do it all over again.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes we lose in our life. We get so caught up in to do and to achieve and acquire things that we lose the understanding. If I do one thing nice today for somebody else, I made an impact on the world.
Absolutely. And also, it makes a difference in ourselves. We are impacting someone else, but doing something nice for someone else. I don't know about you, but I feel like I almost get more out of it just from the feeling of that than maybe somebody else does. It just makes me feel so good.
Yeah, I think that's true for most people, right? Like most people feel great on Thanksgiving. Why? Because you're giving, you're bringing something to the feast. You feel good on Christmas because you're giving a gift. And then we spend the other 360 some odd days taking. And we're like, why doesn't this feel good? Well, we're not meant to be takers. I truly don't believe we're meant to be takers.
No, I agree.
Right. And I just love it. And I love one of your lines I read. It says, if you're not ready for some real talk, a little cussing, a bunch of paint slinging, this probably isn't the right place for you. But if you're ready to tap into the real honest art that you got inside waiting to get out, I think you're gonna like it here. I love that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm always nervous when somebody says, I've got something here that you said.
Oh,
Oh, shit.
I did it again, damn it. Yeah. No, yeah, trust me, those are always you're like, oh boy.
But I stand by that. I stand by what
No,
I
I
said.
highly recommend people to go take part in some cussing and throwing around some paint and creating, because it's you. It's letting you out. And we
Absolutely.
don't have to be us for anybody else other than us.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I was funny. I had a question the other day. People were like, "Well, how do you meet all these people?" And like, you have a great circle. And I'm like, you know why? And here's what I truly believe, because I dream and I do dreams. Like if this is a dream, I'm going to try it. You attract other people that are dreaming as well. And even though your dreams aren't the same, you're going to find commonality in chasing them.
Absolutely. And also, oftentimes it's not even the dream that ends up mattering, it's the chasing.
It is. And it's the
It,
stories, right? The fall
the,
downs, the scraped knees, the bruises, the successes.
the whole process, all of it,
I
all of
love it.
it. And
Go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a saying it wasn't mine. Then his name escapes me right now, but it's the creative process. So the creative process has 6 stages. So whether you are learning to play the guitar or you are painting a painting, by the way, I've painted thousands of paintings. Every single painting has gone through this process. And there's 6 stages. Number 1, this is awesome. Everybody starts off like, this is gonna be so great, right? This is gonna be so good. This is awesome. Number 2, this is tricky.
Mm.
Number 3, this is shit. Number 4, now I am shit. Number 5, this might work. And number 6, this is awesome.
Oh, I love it.
So every time an artist paints, we go through this struggle. We go through this creative process. And it's the ones that get to this is shit, I am shit, which is stage, of 3 and 4. Those are the ones that quit.
Mm.
But that's not when we quit. That's when we know we're just in the hard. And it's going to get better if we just keep going. And I think the creative process is so mirrors life. You start off and you think this is going to be awesome. And it always gets a little tricky. And it usually kind of goes to shit, or you think, what am I doing? What am I doing? And who, and the part
Yeah.
like, and who am I to think I
Love it.
can?
Yeah.
And then if you'll just hang in there, it'll work out.
I can't think of a better way to end this conversation, Joey. That is fantastic. It has been an absolute honor to have you on the show. I knew our paths were crossing for a reason, my friend.
I think so too. And it's been such a pleasure. You're one of those people we go like, oh, we could talk for 3 more hours about we could just
Well, we'll have to do it again. Where though, before I let you go, where can our audience follow you? Where can they sign up for some of the workshops and become part of your community to just let the cuss words and the art start slinging?
well, you can always find me at my website, which is jodieking.com. And I spell my first name JODIEKING.com. And then I have the Honest Art podcast, which is sassy and fun. Honest Art with Jodie King podcast. And then always on Instagram, Jodie_King. So follow me anywhere, DM me, email me, reach out. I'd love to visit with you.
Thanks so much, Jodie. It's been a privilege to share your story, my friend.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.